So we can start.
1 second. Let me just set up my other camera here. I have a
Uh,
couple cameras, so
Perfect.
all
So
right. Yeah. Whenever you're ready, man. I'm
yeah.
ready.
Yeah. So hey everyone, welcome back to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I am your host Avik, and as always, we are here to explore the many dimensions of health, wellness, and the personal growth. And today's episode promises to challenge you, inspire you, and maybe even make you a little comfortable. Sorry, I would say uncomfortable, because it's the best way possible. We are diving deep into a topic that doesn't always get the attention it deserves. It's the mental and sexual wellness, sexual health, and the personal development. These areas are interconnected and yet often shrouded in silence, stigma, or shame. But not today. I'm thrilled to introduce you to someone who's fearlessly leading men to break free from the chains of addiction, rediscover their confidence, and transform their lives. GT Dan. So, welcome to the show, GT.
Hey, Avik. How's it going, man?
Lovely. It's going great. Lovely. I'm really happy to have you here on this show, and I can't wait to discuss. Yeah, can't
Yeah,
wait
it's
to.
good to be here. Thank you for inviting me to the show.
Lovely, lovely. And before we start conversation, I'll quickly love to introduce you to all of our listeners. Dear listeners, GT is a no BS mental and sexual wellness coach for men,
Mhm.
an executive reboot strategies for the porn reboot system by elevated recovery, and someone who's helped over 10,000 men redefine their masculinity and reclaim control over their lives. So his journey isn't just about the expertise, it's about personal. So he's been uh, where many struggle, and his unfiltered, result driven approach has sparked transformation that go beyond the mental and the sexual health. So, dear listeners, buckle up for a conversation that's raw, real, and absolutely life changing. So, GT, welcome to the show again.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. I really appreciate it. So, yeah, I'm
Thank you.
excited to actually get into the topic, to just increase
Yeah,
more awareness about this subject topic. So,
exactly. So, I'll quickly start with a very something fundamental. Like,
mm.
I mean, why do you think that uh, conversations around sexual health and addiction are still so taboo, especially for men? What do you say?
That's a good question. Yeah, like why is like sexual topics, right, or even like porn addiction is such a taboo to talk about, right? I think at the end of the day, it goes back to like our identity as men. Um, like our sexual identity as men is really, really strong to our ego, and so because whenever any man their sexuality and being questioned, right? Their ego, it's gonna be hurt, right? Or it's gonna actually touch very, very close to it anyway. I think, and also because of probably like cultural, societal stigma as well, that also contributes to that, especially if you were to come from places like actually like India or even any Asian countries, right? Or any household, any culture, right? A lot of Christian household, they are very traditional. They tend to be like very hesitant to actually talk about sex in a positive way. So,
Understood. Understood. That's very, very true. Yeah. And also, like, what do you think? I mean, how can men begin to break this silence and create that safe spaces for these kind of conversations?
yeah. Well, the first thing is to acknowledge that you are not alone in this journey. I think a lot of men, they are afraid to actually talk about this initially is because they thought that this struggle it's very personal and private, and no one actually are struggling to the extent that they're actually struggling with, right? Especially with porn addiction, right? Or any sexual addiction at all. And unfortunately, there's also not enough communities out there that we can actually talk about. Like, for example, if you were to have an alcohol addiction or drugs addiction or even gambling addiction or any other kinds of addiction, right? Even gaming addiction, those are more easily, like, it's still hard to talk about it. However, compared to pornography addiction, there's not too many men are actually quick to admit that they actually are struggling with that just because
Mm.
how close they are, to their sexual identity. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Exactly makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And it's so important for you to
Mm.
understand you're not alone in this journey. And then it's really important for you to actually find a community with like-minded men
Yeah.
to pretty much connect with so you're not judged and you're able to actually share about this topic and talk about your struggles without worrying about hurting, let's say, your wife, your girlfriend, or even worrying about whether, like, maybe your church members may judge you, right? Or your cousins, your friends, right? They may judge you because of your behavior with pornography. I think that fear of societal judgment, external judgment, I think is also contribute to like them. It's so hard to talk about it in an open way and in a healthy way. Yeah.
Exactly. I understand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So also, I really love the journey to reboot. So,
Mm.
uh, you have personally walked the path of battling addiction and self-discovery. So, if you can share a bit about your own reboot journey, like what inspired you to help others?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I started my exposure to pornography started around like 11 years old. I think that's a really common age for any guys, in the 30s. Um and unfortunately, actually, Vic, do you know what is the average age now of, you know, anyone, not just men, the exposure to porn, the average age nowadays in
Uh, I
2025?
2025, I believe it's 16 and above.
No, it's 6 years old.
Huh?
6 years
Really?
old is the average age of anyone who are gonna be exposed to porn, to pornography, right? So it's not just about
Hmm.
whether um we are gonna be exposed to porn or not. It's about when are you gonna be actually exposed to it, right? So for me, my journey in terms of with at least with pornography, right? I started, when I was 11. I was in actually my cousin's apartment when no one was there, and I was bored. Just like any other kid, I was trying to look for like videotapes. I used to have, I don't know if what era you actually grew up with, Avik, but I grew up with VHS test video home you know system, right? So, and those tapes, man, that definitely brings back memories. But this memory, it was soldered to my mind. I still remember like the exact scene that I watched, even though I didn't understand what I was really watching, honestly. And I wasn't addicted then, honestly. I was just exposed. But that definitely made a huge impression on me. Then during those times when I was really young, I also struggled with a lot of um social anxiety and a lot of self-image issues, right? I had very low self-esteem, and I did also struggle with a little bit of a trauma as well, with actually quite it kind of like hurt my life a lot. I lost my brother when I was 8 years old. He was only 5. So, and because of that, once I actually found a way, the first time my dad, actually got a home computer at home and also internet. And then when I discovered a way to actually access online pornography, man, that's as if like literally like I found like this candy land, right? You know, a kid in a candy land. It's like in a Disney world. However, it's an adult Disney world, right? Essentially. So I didn't know better, right? And guess
Mm,
what? That was my way to cope. That was my way to actually learn about the woman's body. That was my education to sex, unfortunately, right?
right.
So and because of that, I also developed I was very shy in terms of with girls, with women, and not only until like my I would say my mid 20s that I actually started developing more self confidence, in myself. So
Lovely. That's great.
yeah,
And
yeah. Go ahead.
and I mean, I have to say that hearing a story makes me think about how powerful transformation, or I mean, the personal transformation can be. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a kind of ripple effect which I feel like you heal yourself and then you
Mm-hmm.
uh, empower others to heal. It's such a full circle moment. So
Mm-hmm.
we call it here like a circle of life.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I believe that's really really great. Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah, yeah. That's why, like, I think the typical,
Hmm.
unfortunately, of it, the typical recovery doesn't really work for a lot of guys
Yeah,
who are struggling with this. You know why I say that?
yeah. Why?
Well, because the word recover, right?
Hmm.
What does that mean? It means that there is something, an original state to recover towards.
Yeah.
Okay. While there is an original state, the natural state where our mind is not
Hmm.
being um, affected by the over stimulation of
Hmm.
pornography, artificial sexual stimulation, right?
Yeah.
And there is that original state. However, most men, they never really experience that, right? On long periods of time. A lot of those guys who are actually struggling with this, we get all kinds of men, who struggle with this to reach out to us. So they actually have a um, discreet and private, right, way to actually get help. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we get guys who are as young as like 18-year-old just get out of you know, getting started with college, right? All the way to like, 20s, 30s, a lot of these young men, who are uh,
Hmm.
ambitious, they're entrepreneurial, and they want to actually own their own business. They want to start a podcast, right? They want
Yeah.
to pretty much like build a name, a legacy for themselves. And we also have men who are as old as like actually our oldest client is 94 years old, right? We have professors, college professors, PhD, professors. We have actually psychiatrists reaching out to us too, and we also have um, pastors reach out to us. Yeah, monk reach out to us, priests, and so on. So I think it's so important, for you to actually have the right kind of person to reach out, right? To talk about it and actually face the real issue. That's why you need to reboot. You cannot just recover because recover, you're only going to the original state. But if you've been actually exposed to pornography since like at least like 6 years old or even like 15 years old, your brain is just developing. And guess what? On average, actually, our brain it's not even fully developed yet until the age of 25 years old. So the truth is, like most men who are actually exposed to pornography in their teenage years, they actually haven't lived a long enough life without porn. When you haven't lived a long enough life without porn, where are you gonna recover towards? You need what? You need to reboot. You need to actually address all of the core issues, right, um with your life. because there's probably a lot of underlying issues that it's been holding you back. Yeah. And it's been causing you to use pornography to cope, right? To cope with the stress, to cope with the insecurity, or even just to cope with the loneliness that you feel, right? Or even boredom. There's a lot of problems, that could actually lead to a pornography addiction. Does that make sense, Avik?
Definitely, definitely makes sense. And um, yeah, I mean, I really love this concept. Definitely, definitely I loved it.
Mm,
And also, when we talk about personal development as well, like confidence, which is a kind of recurring theme in your work,
yeah.
uh, I believe there are a lot of people who lack in somehow, or maybe it's incorrect to say lacking, but because
Mhm,
we all have that confidence, but we do not have that urge to raise that confidence. So,
mhm.
uh, what's the first step a man can take to start rebuilding his confidence after a setback?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good question, man. I know, like, I think a lot of the biggest thing that hold a lot of men back is the shame and the guilt,
Correct.
right? That you feel after a relapse or after a slip, right? Or after like you just like, oh, I did that thing again, right? Whatever the case is. Uh, and unfortunately, some men actually get to the extreme of like rewiring their arousal template to the point of like literally changing the sexual orientation internally and questioning their sexuality. I have clients, I have men actually reach out to us because they started acting out with like, uh, with transgendered individuals in real life, right? I'll get into, answering your question just a little bit, right, Avik, right? But I just want to address that um, me actually even talking about that and normalizing that hey, it's okay that you have this problem, right? That you're struggling with this addiction, that you actually even might have premature ejaculation, right? Or ED, right? Porn induced erectile dysfunction, short, which is like PIED. If you look it up, you find a lot of information about it, right? Um, and you understanding your addiction, I think that's the first step, is to educate yourself. Like, for example, listening to this podcast and this interview allowed you to understand that, hey, you know what, I'm not the only person who's actually struggling with pornography. As a matter of fact, there's actually a statistics, there's a study actually said about 70% of men have certain level of addictive behavior with pornography. 70%, which means like out of 10 men, there's seven. Out of 100 men, there's 70 men that you can find. They actually have this problem, right? So I think the first step is to not beat yourself up, right? In terms of like rebuilding your confidence again and of your self control. Second is to reach out for help. Is to reach out for help. It could be like just um, looking up information online. We do have our YouTube channel as well on our Porn Reboot YouTube channel. We actually just recently crossed 100,000 subscribers, right? So I'm really excited, to help more men. And also our podcast too. We have a Porn Reboot podcast that's actually on all platforms wherever you listen to your podcast. Over 600 episodes there that is actually done and produced by our head coach and founder, JK Nazy. So I think educating yourself and understanding that you're not going to stay this way for the rest of your life is very important. I think that should be the first step, and maybe, you know, professional help might be necessary for you if you're listening to this, and if this is something that you've been struggling this for years and years and years. Of course, you're always welcome to reach out to us directly, and we'll have a private conversation, about this and see what is the best next step for you.
Perfect. That's really, really lovely.
Hmm.
So, I mean, helping men often means they have to navigate tough conversations with their partners, friends, family.
Mm-hmm.
Quick things like, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to someone who is afraid of being judged or misunderstood in this kind of conversations?
Well, chat with us first. I think one of the first thing a lot of men, it's it's harder for you to actually talk to your
Mm.
wife or your girlfriends, right? Or even the community because of fear of judgment, right? So I would say actually reach out to professional help first. Reach out to me, reach out to one of our team members, right? We have a lot of team members and coaches that can actually have a safe and discreet and private conversation with you so that you're not feeling alone. You're not just like suppressing it. Because a lot of times, Avik, when we suppress something, right, so long, at some point it's gonna blow up, right?
Yeah,
That's just a law of nature. That's just a law of nature. And that's why it's so important for you to actually learn how to even talk about it. No, I get it, man. It's hard to talk about it if like you've never actually talked about this as a problem to any human being. It's one thing to type about it
mm,
online on an anonymous forum or even like a Reddit, or subreddit. I think we get a lot of clients that's referred through us, through uh
yeah,
therapists too, right? I think a lot
correct.
of guys, a lot of men also reach out to the therapist and then they talk about it. But not all therapists actually treat porn addiction as
Yeah,
real. Some of them think that this is not even real. Some of our clients even need to convince the therapist that porn addiction is real and they need a separate process to deal with this. And that's why we get a lot of referrals, from therapists and also pastors as well to help their church members and their clients. So,
exactly.
hmm yeah.
Lovely. That's really great, JD. And this conversation has been incredible. And
Mm,
um, I have to say that you have shown us so much to think about when it comes to mental wellness, personal growth, sexual health. And
mhm,
for the listeners, I have to mention that, dear listeners, like if you have been holding back from addressing any of these areas in your life,
mm,
then remember this, like it's never too late to take control. GT has always mentioned that uh, you are not alone, definitely.
yeah.
So so please redefine yourself and create the life that you deserve.
Hmm.
So, and GT has started some amazing insights today. I mean, you can definitely listen to this. If you're not listening right now, do give a listen to this episode and
Hmm.
share it with someone who actually needs to listen to this. So this is very very important. And also I'll put all the links into the show notes for that, so that you can connect with GT or learn more about his work with the pawn reboot system.
Hmm.
And as always, if this episode has resonated with you, please 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 share it with everyone you know, or the person or the friend or the family or anyone who needs to listen to this. So until next time, this is your host reminding you to nurture your mind, care for your body, and live your healthiest and happiest life. So stay inspired and see you next time on Healthy Mind and Healthy Life. Thank you so much.